Welcome, beautiful people, to our first talk of the day with Mufrid Krilic, and he will talk to us about multiple teams with multiple perspectives and multiple models and a case study from healthcare. Have fun.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you all for being here, this amazing conference. Once again, they put up a great show. Looking forward to catch up with some old friends and meet new friends. It's always great to be here. This will be a story about from healthcare, rather funny domain, non-trivial at all, always something challenging. That's why we are drawn to it. I've been working in several domains, mostly in healthcare. And sometimes along the path, somebody labeled me domain-driven design enthusiast. So that's a fine thing, right? Something to be proud of. So I put it here. But feel free to reach out. I'd like to always up to expanding the community. So I work in a small consultancy called Cowork. And we developed this model called tight, loose, tight with a sketchy name. And I'll be showing you how we used this approach, leadership approach, tight, loose, tight, combined with domain-driven design. And we have a partner here in Berlin, actually offering a training on this one, so you might check it out since we are in Berlin. And every time I speak about my company, there is one peculiar thing that we have all read this book. I always recommend this, Reinventing Organizations. It's the way to set up your organization, your relations in your company in a slightly different way than you might be accustomed to. It's not a silver bullet, right? Nothing ever is. But it could inspire. Next time somebody mentions we need to reorganize. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Okay, so why I'm doing this talk? When I started doing conference speaking some years ago, I started with this approach. I'm going to share my stories, and hope people find it interesting. And there was this post about from Eve on LinkedIn that he really pinpointed that. Okay, that's what you want to hear. We want to hear modeling stories. We want to hear your modeling breakthroughs. We want to hear your real world struggles, what decisions you made. So, and if you're not, haven't submitted the conference before, I encourage you to consider it. Start with your own story. You're an expert on your own story. Nobody else is. It will be interesting to many people. So, and what Eve encouraged us to do is to talk about modeling breakthroughs. So I will try to tell a story, how we arrived at the modeling breakthrough. And along the way, we will cover some strategies to learn complex domains, how we decompose the problems, aligning different perspectives in a cross-functional team and outside of the team, how we deliver some value in a legacy environment, and finally, that modeling breakthrough. If you have any questions or comments, please go on Menti. There is a code. I'll try to answer them after the session. Any comments, feedbacks, anything, I appreciate it. So please do engage. So we'll start with the story. And I mentioned we are going to talk about healthcare, but healthcare is a really vast domain. Like this is everything in it. So we have to kind of limit it to a specific part of the healthcare, which will be what they call a group treatment in healthcare. So sometimes there is a benefit for patients with a similar diagnosis to be treated in a group. It's been used many years, especially in psychiatry and conversational therapy, but also to some degree on somatic side in post-injury training sessions. So that is kind of the overarching domain we are talking about here. Okay, so this is a story. Every story needs a hero. Who are the heroes in software development? Well, they are agile product teams, right? You are the heroes. So we were the heroes, and we always work in some kind of constraints, right? So what were our constraints? First constraint was the business goal. The business goal was replace the legacy system because it works everywhere and works for everyone. But we need to replace it. Well, that's not much of a business goal, right? It says nothing about stakeholders, business value, user needs. But I guess this is reality in many organizations. At some point, you get this large force in the organization, the need to replace the system. And it's becoming perceived as a business goal itself. Another constraint was, or opportunity, was the legacy system itself, depending on how you look at it. Works everywhere and for everyone. What do you mean by it? But does it work in every case, every time? Why do we replace it if it works everywhere and for everyone? But there's this quote for this great paper, How Complex Systems Fail. That complex systems always run in a broken state, and what keeps them alive or functioning is the level of manual procedures and routines that people around the system put on top of the system to make them work, to make the system work. And at some point in time, the amount of these manual procedures and routines that are put on top of the system become complex in themselves. So you have complexity on top of complexity, and then customers go back to you, we can't do this anymore, you have to help us. Okay, and we had the knowledge constraint. We didn't have much knowledge about this particular domain of group treatment. We had only a product owner in our team. It was like nice cross-functional agile team, developers, tester, product owner. Only product owner was very knowledgeable. Others, we had a very little knowledge about the domain. But, he had a very good overview of the history, decisions being made and everything. But he was rather curious that because the system was developed like many, many years ago. And okay, well, how the system was actually used, it could be different to what we envisioned so many years ago. So it was something up to for him in this as well. Okay, so those are the constraints, and we started how to learn something about it so we can make some valuable contribution. Okay, so this is where this titles tight comes in. So titles tight is a leadership approach to incentivize learning in complex environments. It gives leaders some framework and tools to collaborate with the teams when they are dealing with complex problems. Collaborating on purpose and goals and needs, on why are we doing this, and reflecting on the effect and the outcome. And trying to incorporating the learning curve into the planning process itself. So we are trying to affect the planning process of what we have learned. And there is this loose period in between where teams have high autonomy to play with different models and solutions. So this is the leadership approach, but in order to do this, there is some cost in doing this, of course. You need to understand what is the type of problem you're dealing with. Are you dealing with complex problems? What is your mindset? So if you're simple problems, so automate it. There are standards solutions to it. And if you have been in this situation before, you have previous experience, you can make a plan, you can stick to the plan. But what if you haven't done this before? What if you lack experience? What you only have is a set of assumptions that you need to, some hypothesis that you need to validate. Then you probably have, from your perspective, a complex problem. So that's where titles tight is being applied usually. So it calls for discovering purpose and needs collaboratively and challenging your assumptions collaboratively. And what we discovered here, like, okay, what titles tight argues for actually is collaborative modeling. So in collaborative modeling workshops, we discover purpose and needs, as long as you put the right people in the same room. I guess it was in Alberto's book, People with Questions and People with Answers. That's the definition of the right people in the same room. But you also want people with different perspectives. So domain experts fit from different departments, so you get different perspectives. So they help you challenge our assumptions. So that's what we got from Titles Tight. We got support from management to do collaborative modeling workshops. Not always that you get the support. You have to fight. So we found a way through the management leadership approach. Okay, so now we're going to go rather deep into this domain of group treatment and to see what we actually did in this collaborative modeling workshop. Okay, so our approach was what are the use cases, discover use cases, and then you drill into scenarios using collaborative modeling techniques, and this great community have put up many methods for collaborative modeling of your choosing. But whatever you use, to me, it's like this ability to ask a bunch of questions is essential. So you get to step outside of your comfort zone and ask a bunch of questions during the collaborative modeling sessions. And then you listen. You listen. It's a kind of difficult for us. We are technical people. We are solution-oriented. That's your trait, right? But perhaps you need to be problem-oriented sometimes and listen. So those two things, you can, soft skills that you should put on your CV. I can ask a bunch of questions and I'm able to listen. And then you repeat this on different scenarios. And at some point, you will ask the right questions that will domain experts we can relate to, and you can give the answer that you can really understand. And having domain experts from different departments, different perspectives, can give you different questions, different answers to the same question. Also a funny situation, but you learn from it. So you start with these use cases. What are the use cases we have to focus on? And in this case, we discovered that we have two use cases in group treatment. We want to set up a group, we do a planning, and we want to conduct group appointments. What happens during those appointments? Who has checked in, and etc. So I'll be using domain storytelling. We use domain storytelling. Since we're in Berlin, I'll put up a German edition of the book. So we started with this workshop. We have many domain experts in the room. And we start with this, okay, can we start with yourself, sir? Somatic department, they have a section for rehabilitation of the lifestyle-affected illness. Some illness unfortunately affect your lifestyle to a great degree, and you need to learn to live with it. So this rehabilitation center offers courses and advice how to adapt your lifestyle. And then use group treatment to do this. So we start with the main story on the group treatment, okay? Medical secretary receives referral regarding patient, and then we get the first feedback. Yes, you can use the term medical secretary, but my real job title is training consultant. Okay, interesting, we note this. Then we go further. Next step, there is a consultation between secretary and physician about the referral. Yes, physician is okay, but my real job title is medical supervisor of the course. Okay, note it. So try to note those small things that might seem important or not. It's up to you. Needs practice. Then the secretary informs the patients and the GP about registration of the course, sends a letter to the patient, and then secretary sets up a calendar. And all sorts of interesting things start to happen here. It's a paper-based system, okay, and we involve a lot of stakeholders to set up this calendar course, and we agree on agenda, and we never cancel the course. What? You never cancel the course? No. So you don't need the cancel function? No. Okay. And we have still not approached any IT system. Everything is manual. It was surprising. And as a last step, medical secretary actually registers a patient and the group in the patient record system. So what we perceived was the core system was actually on the edge of the business process in this case. Interesting. Okay, so we go along, to the next step. Same domain expert, can you explain us the check-in process in your department? Okay, patients check in. I verify who are expecting to see at the appointment, and then a day after I go and register who have attended, who was no-show, who had cancelled, based on the same list. So this is a clinical documentation in the patient record system. The physician approves it, and I can send the invoice to the patients. Great. And in the same workshops, we move on. So we have documented this, we have recorded this, and then we move on. We have another domain expert sitting next to the person from rehabilitation center, and then we repeat the same use case all over again from the scratch. So how does this go in psychiatry? And it turns out in psychiatry, they start to work on this patient record system straight away because they have much larger degree of predictability. So they start with, they have some fixed recurrence on their schedule. So they set up 2 groups, different locations for 2 days, and they add patients, and they set up appointment schedule based on those recurrence they have put up. They add the specialists that they contribute to the group appointment. Could be psychologists, physiotherapists, and other roles. And there is a slight difference that patients attend the whole appointment, while the others do not. They attend only at certain time slots. Great, and here we see some differences. Okay, there is our system that we have developed is much more at the core of the process here compared to the last case. Okay, and then we ask, how do you do check-in? Same domain expert. And we notice that here, the medical secretary is not as involved as other department. The specialist does the jobs themselves. Get the patients into from the waiting room, register show, no-show, cancellations, records patient visit. And then the medical secretary supplements this, goes through the list that haven't been invoiced, perhaps add some more documentation, so other specialists that have collaborated, and sends the invoice to the patients. Great. And this is, of course, simplified version of the real world. This was 6 hours long workshop, and there are many more details. You pop up in these stories, and many details you have to cover, and it's rather intense, and you learn a lot, and you process a lot. But that is, for the purposes of this talk, you need to get to the bottom of it. Okay, so this was our collaborative modeling workshop. Great. What we do about it? So next Monday, we decide, okay, let's do some modeling. We learn something. Let's see if we can get that next step and move towards some, perhaps we can go towards some system support here. And we will use this data ownership as a kind of validation tool for validating different, comparing models to each other. And the data ownership, it is, what I mean with data ownership is a business term is defined by a set of data properties. That is data ownership. Okay, so we go on, we are on the whiteboard. How can we decompose this problem? What is the first suggestion? Well, we can do what we always do. We use functional decomposition. This is kind of a classic approach. Many systems do this. It's a kind of default approach for us as developers. So boundary in the system follow the function. Function is something the user needs to do to perform the task they want to do in their business process. And the subdomain is function. So what functions do we have here? Well, we have setting up a group of patients, we have register attendance, we have sending an invoice. And for some reason, when we use functional decomposition, we end up with a single model. You could, of course, argue you could split the model along the lines of the functions, but more often than not, we end up with single model. And perhaps there are no incentives in the functional decomposition to discover nuances of the modeling. It's more like, okay, what functions do you have and what we need to support the functions. So, okay, what data ownership can tell us about it? Well, we need all these properties to support all those functions. So everything needs to be in place, and then we can support functions, all the functions in group treatment. Great. And we were in this modeling session, and we kind of discussed this. Well, we've done this for many years. Our legacy system is very functionally decomposed. Can we improve on it in any way? Okay, what have domain stories shown us? Well, they are very specific about people, roles involved in the business process. So we could decompose along the lines of the roles involved. So role-based decomposition. So which roles perform different functions? We are still on a function, but more into a kind of task-oriented, but role-based functions. Which functions are specific to different roles? Okay, so we see in some of the cases that physician and medical secretary collaborate more on the planning side, while secretary is working on their own, on check-in and on billing side. Meaning we have now an incentive to split the model, to have two models. One model of a group, business term group for planning, and one model for check-in. Great. We moved on, improved something. And we use domain ownership, data ownership to reflect on it. How does it work? Well, it splits nicely. So those properties specific to check-in process, who has cancelled, who was no-show, invoices, they can be put on the check-in context. And on the planning context are roles that participate in the group. And then there's this awkward reference to paragraph in the law for psychiatry, for compulsory treatment in psychiatry. It's very specific to psychiatry. At least in Norway, it's like this. And we didn't know where to put it, so we just put it here. Okay, great. And what domain-driven design community teaches us, try with 3 models. Okay, can you get yet another model? Okay. There is this notion of time. Can we employ notion of time to decompose even further? Time and role-based decomposition is possible. If you use event storming, it's even more obvious, more explicit how the time goes, how your model, how your domain works with respect to time. But even in domain storytelling, we could see that some things happen the day after, and there is some things seem to happen in certain order. Okay, so we are closing in this user context. What context are you in when you're doing certain tasks? So which roles perform different functions at different times? We are still on the function, but more in the context-based setting. So we start with we have time axis. We start with planning the group, and then checking in, and then sending an invoice, which means we can have 3 models of a group. One for planning, one for checking in, and one for invoicing. Okay, there is incentive to consider this. And then we go on and use data ownership to validate this, and it splits up nicely. We can refine this, the definition of group in when you're talking about billing and a check-in. So the very specific check-in properties for check-in context, very specific billing properties for billing context. And we keep all those on the left side for planning, and we still have a bit of a problem with this reference to paragraph in law for psychiatry. But we keep it there. So what you learned from this modeling session is that, okay, we can move from functional decomposition by analyzing collaborative modeling. Because it was clear to us that functional decomposition hides user needs behind functions. So if our goal is to reduce the gap between the user's mental model and a model in the code, functional decomposition does not help. It hides all those needs behind the functions. And we are going to this canonical domain model. It was like no improvement on the legacy system. Great. So, what did we do about it? So we had these 3 models, what to choose. Again, what we learned from collaborative modeling was that end users need flexibility. They need to conduct some business decisions on their own without involving a delivery team all the time, like on rehabilitation. They set up different courses and different diagnoses. There's adult psychiatry, pediatric psychiatry, and so on. So we need to support some level of flexibility. However, having a more closer look on our legacy system, we discovered this relation between flexibility and complexity. So allowing flexibility everywhere calls for highly customizable system. So that's what they meant with works everywhere for everyone. It was one system, and you can configure it any way you like, everywhere. Perfect. Apart from that, there was no way that we could reproduce the customer's configuration setup in our local environment. And even customers themselves didn't comprehend the vast permutations of configuration parameters they had on their own side. So that was the complexity in praxis, allowing flexibility everywhere. Okay, so can we allow flexibility, constrain the flexibility within a bounded context? If we can tailor towards the user needs, perhaps bounded context around user needs, and we can allow for customization and flexibility within a bounded context. That was our goal. Okay, so what did we do? We chose this one. We chose role-based decomposition. So we split into two models. One model for planning, one model for check-in. Perhaps obvious choice, but obvious choices are always obvious in hindsight, right? But there was a path towards this decision. And we always get some feedback on our choices. Time, great thing. The time perspective actually separates the models. We see that group check-in is about what happened in an appointment, by group planning, what is going to happen in an appointment. So two very different time perspectives. Great. But why didn't we choose this time and role-based decomposition? A little more complex one, but having perhaps a greater value. Well, we are working in a complex problems, right? We haven't done this before, we lack experience, we had a set of assumptions. So why didn't we apply something that would presumably deal with complexity better? Well, it has to do something with team maturity. And we use this model of levels of alignment from title state to kind of assess our maturity level. So now on the, this is kind of, there are 5 levels of alignment, and the lowest level is your expertise. It's what your trade. You are a developer, you know how to write unit tests, you want to become better in writing unit tests. You align towards your expertise. It's like natural way to, something that everybody relates to. When you're hired as a developer or a tester, then you want to perform your role better, do a part in your processes even better. So you have a better developer in your company. That's your role in your company. And on the project side, what are the constraints on the project side? We want to replace the legacy system. That was our constraint, right? So we deliver new features to replace the legacy system. But this is the inner alignment. We were all very comfortable within these 3 levels. This is the inner alignment in your organization, your projects, your roles and processes, your professional background. But we are in the complex domain here, right? So we realize we need to align outside our own constraints of our organization. So we align with the users. And what we see from users that they have different user needs regarding which user you are talking to. So how do we align with that one? And on the last level is, why are you in this business? Okay, we want to provide some clinically effective tools for diverse patient needs. That's why we're here. And as I said, we were rather assessing our maturity level using the levels of alignment. We were very comfortable on 3 levels, all of us. But developers were not very aligned with the user needs. It was a distance to us. So we needed to take a step towards outer alignment. And this is where your maturity comes in. How are you ready to take the big step or a small step? So we used appropriate decomposition approach to reach higher level alignment. So our natural step was this role-based decomposition. So we moved from functional decomposition towards role-based decomposition. Great. And we reflected these multiple models in the code structure. So you use those abstractions that are available to you in your programming environment, right? Repository or namespaces, or we were in .NET world, so we use those Visual Studio solutions, or whatever is available to you. And so we structured the source code like this. And then when we expanded on this one, then we were allowed to define our model, always simplified model, for this case, align this model with this data ownership. So those data properties that define the term group in check-in and the term group in planning was aligned nicely along this split. Now, of course, we say it's about behavior, not data, so don't get me wrong. There should be a lot more behavior here, but it's more like what I'm trying to convey here is that you can use this approach of data ownership to validate your different models, and then you go on, implement behavior, and see if you validate it even further. Okay. So here we are. So we had this collaborative modeling workshop. We learned the domain. We have done modeling workshops. We have considered different models. We took our choice and chose this role-based decomposition. And we had started to implement it in code. So what next? Well, it turns out that I talked about flexibility, but we gained some flexibility on our part by splitting along these lines. We could consider which model to kind of prioritize, to focus on first, planning or check-in. Why? Okay, and this is a difficult thing when you are in this replace legacy system setting. How do you replace legacy system? It's almost always that's full of functionality and value and provides value for our customers. So can we deliver something early? Can we deliver something sooner rather than later? And can this decomposition help us take that decision, what to deliver sooner rather than later? Okay? And it turned out that context mapping as a tool was quite helpful in this regard. So we take a look at the check-in process again at one of the cases. And we see that apart from the group treatment part of this, there is also patient visit, which is clinical documentation of what has happened on the consultations and appointments of various kinds. And this was the functionality that was existing in our new system, regardless of the group treatment. So there was another team working on this, and providing this patient visit functionality. So we were kind of, okay, we need to integrate with that team. The same goes for invoicing. Group treatment uses invoicing, but we were not the team that were delivering the invoicing part of the system. There was another team. And there was the scheduling part, like canceling canceling the appointments and yeah, for instance. So that was another team, yet another team. So from this picture of this domain story, we realized there are at least three other contexts we need to relate to. Okay? But which relation describes our situation best to these three contexts? Okay, so we took up the blue book and looked up all those definitions of context mapping relationship between two systems. And we were at least agreed, okay, this is very much upstream-downstream relationship because we are dependent on somebody doing the invoicing, documenting patient visit, and being able to cancel the appointments, patient being able to cancel the appointments. So we had upstream-downstream relationship with three other teams. But this was kind of a crucial one. The upstream teams, our dependencies, may succeed independently of our fate. So they were kind of, for them, they had their backlog, they had their requirements, they had their plans, and we were not involved in those plans. So they were kind of going down their own road, but for us, in order for us to succeed, we needed their help, but not the other way around. So what the Blue Book recommends is you establish a clear customer-supplier relationship between the teams. It was 3 customer-supplier relationships between ourselves and 3 other teams. And we negotiate. Could you please prioritize this feature, not the other, because it can help us to achieve our goal. So it was from the brown book. Nobody calls it brown book, I guess, in the DDD community. The little one. I use it often. DDD reference book. But it is from the blue book, of course. So this was our context map, right? Group check-in, it was a kind of overarching process, dependency on scheduling to be able to cancel the appointments, to be able to document patient visit, and able to do invoicing regarding to what happened at the appointment. So we asked ourselves, can we use these dependencies to our advantage? We all like autonomy and no dependencies and going at full speed, but can we flip the coin here? So the dependencies were working in our favor here. Other teams could actually help us achieve the goal with relatively little work on their side. Because we decided to go down this road. So if we can decide not to reuse the business logic that exists in 3 contexts, but only let the user navigate across the context in the UI on the front end, using the UI composition pattern. Using just IDs, appointment IDs for scheduling and patient ID for patient visit and so on. There are, of course, a lot more details here, but the idea is kind of let the user navigate across the different contexts, reusing the business logic, not creating hard dependencies, and using mostly IDs. So this UI composition pattern helped. It was really applicable, and it turns out it works in most legacy system scenarios. I'm working on another legacy system right now, and we are using this pattern as well. You can almost always navigate to some web page and show some decision support to users. But what was really interesting, that the context maps actually revealed this possibility for early release. So we could decide, are we going to start with group planning or group check-in? We had 2 models. We had this possibility to decide. And we had full autonomy for group planning. We can go full speed. But it turns out it was faster to get some help from other teams, and write less code, and then deliver a group check-in. So that's what we did. We negotiated with other teams, get some help, delivered early on group check-in, and then we started working on group planning. It turned out it was correct, because it took us more time to finish group planning than we initially envisioned, right? So context map, it really did some interesting, gave us some really interesting perspective. Okay, so what about this modeling breakthrough? Kind of leading up to this one. Finally, we understood the business. I'm not sure how much time it took us, but at some point, we realized that there is this relation between the business and the legacy system. And the more complex the legacy system, and the longer the system is in production, the funny thing starts to happen. The legacy system starts to affect the language of the domain experts. And it took us some time to realize it. Not on the first collaborative modeling workshop, not on the second, but at some point, so those domain terms they are using are not the actually domain terms of healthcare or group treatment. It's the domain terms from our legacy system. Yes, they do. So our task was to distill domain, trying to capture the very essence of the business process. So when you do a collaborative modeling workshop, you're more likely to ask the question, so what would you do if there were no system support at all? What are you trying to achieve? Why are you doing this? And that's what we call pure domain stories, trying to get to the level there where we really understand the business on its own, on its own premises. Okay, so and we got back to this to some of the domain stories, and we reconsider them again. Like the planning process in the somatic department and the planning process in psychiatry department, they are rather different. They are. They tell us something. And there's another funny thing. This is a list of all departments in one of the Norwegian hospitals. And I can't find a group treatment here. Why? Don't they do group treatment in hospitals? Well, it turns out that that's not the hospital domain, right? You are not in there for to have a nice check-in process or to have a group treatment. You are there to get some help regarding whatever need you have. And those needs are documented here in the hospital organizations. A maternity ward, radiology department, neurology, and so on. So that's how hospital domain works. No group treatment here. So, and that was this revelation, okay? We can decompose what we call business capabilities. And then we moved from the function, a long way from the function. There are no functions involved. We have business capabilities, which are subdomains. And this is foundation for our product architecture. So very roughly, we can split between psychiatry and somatics. And we can apply time-based and role-based decomposition within this split of business capabilities. So you can have 6 definitions, 6 models, if you like, if it works for you, if it was any use. But splitting this along the line of business capabilities gave something interesting. Like, okay, let's use this data ownership. Can data ownership help us validate this model? Well, finally, we find a place to put this property of reference to paragraph in law on compulsory psychiatric treatment, because it's specific to psychiatry. So, great. Here we are having this moment. We are looking each other in the face. So did we do anything about it? This is it. So we finally understand the business. So did we do anything about it? No, nothing. Because this insight came at slightly inconvenient time. Why? In my experience, I know I love refactoring. I love this notion of throwing out the models and starting all over again. But at some points, we feel committed to a model. We have invested so much, and we want to exploit it to the fullest. And it's difficult to go back. And so this was slightly inconvenient. And what was our tight mandate here? What we have agreed with our leadership? Because we started to, as I mentioned, to impact a product architecture. There are product-related decisions to be made here. Which users are we tailoring products on? What is the cost of allowing full flexibility versus the cost of developing separate products? That was not up to us to decide. So it was difficult. We didn't do anything, but perhaps the next crossroad, we are equipped with something better. Okay, wrapping up, ask the right question and listen. Those two things, put on your CV. Beware of the legacy system constrains not only your thinking, but all the domain legacy thinkings. These levels of alignment was rather different to assess our maturity level, respect different perspectives. And there is always another model. Don't fall in love with your models. But you can use data ownership to validate them. And context mapping was a rather interesting tool to discover value chains, give us some possibility for early deliveries. Great. One more thing. One more thing that's really close to my heart. Perhaps the most important thing. I mentioned it before, and this is first Lego League. This is a great thing to recruit the youth, children aged 10 to 16 years, in science and technology. And I would encourage you to consider contributing to this cause. There are teams all over the world. I'm a mentor of Team Ultimum from Norway. They are on GitHub, so please, they would be delighted if you can follow them on GitHub. This is their robot. They are considering doing programming in Python this year, so quite a step from block-based programming. And there is another Fierce Lego League-related talk in KanDDDinsky by Mark at 2 o'clock or something about heavy programming language, which I employed myself to teach kids Python. Thank you.